Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this session of Let Us Talk It Youth Series. We are extremely excited and we welcome you all who has joined in on YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Please, it will be an interactive session, so as much as possible. So please, if you have any feedback, comment, suggestion, question, please do use the comment section. And whoever has been joining, will be joining in Zoom, please use the chat section. And we welcome from the youth group as well. And we have these sessions, the professional webinars, Let Us Talk It, professional webinars on work and life every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday from 12 to 1 p.m. EST. And on Fridays, we have this amazing session of youth webinar from 4 to 5 p.m. EST. With that, we begin today's topic. Today's topic is youth and social causes. Social causes like animal welfare, Black Lives Matter, healthcare, COVID-19, and many others. It is truly said, unless we, especially our youth, the future, cares a whole awful lot, nothing is going to get better. And today we have some amazing youth from fifth grader right up to second year medical student who believes it is not enough to be compassionate about a cause, but to start doing something about it right now. They have started alone, but they know alone we can do little, but together we can do so much. So they have chosen this platform of Let Us Talk It webinars to reach out to those other youth, students, parents, to talk about the social causes, put up their perspectives, their opinions, and what they can do globally, what we can do globally by doing something individually. So we have an amazing panelist today, our first time panelist straight from Scotland, UK, our confident second year medical student, Ishita. She will give her more information in her introduction. So I will not, you have to wait for that. And then we have our very own, full of information, the lady, quite quiet, but she has all the information to her at her, command. She's Siri. We have a supportive Pranav, and we have our enthusiastic fifth grader, Anvita. Siri is a ninth grader and Pranav is 10th grader. And we have for the first time as well, the adventurous Prabhat and the mastermind of today's topic who initiated our moderator today, Medha. So over to you, Medha. All the best, everyone.
Thank you, Chulin Auntie. Hi, everyone. My name's Medha, as Auntie said, and I'll be the moderator for today. Before we get started, I want to ask two questions. So first, to the teens watching, think of an issue that affects at least 2,000 people that keeps you awake at night. And to the parents, think about thought-provoking subjects your children have come to you with to discuss. Keep this in mind throughout today's webinar, and at the end, reflect on your thoughts in the beginning and how they compare with your thoughts once we finish the presentation. Today's webinar is about letting children and teens know substantial action items they can pursue to make an impact specifically on the issues they feel deeply for. And by the end, we hope that you'll know much more about youth activism, from where to begin to taking your efforts even higher. First, we'll introduce ourselves so you get to know your panelists for today. Then we'll go over preventing exploitation of animals and creating a safer society for them to live in. Third, we'll discuss the Black Lives Matter movement, which is one of the most important efforts in youth activism currently, and medicine, which is a profession meant to save the very lives we're raising our voices to protect. Although the two seem like they don't have much in common, there are in fact many important parallels, which we will explain in today's webinar. Next, we'll talk about the COVID-19 pandemic, specifically its impact around the world, both in developed as well as undeveloped countries, and what we can do to help. Finally, we'll be going over the initial steps teens can take to make an impact, and how they can expand to make a global difference. We'll end with a question and answer session as well as an interactive session between the panelists. To introduce myself, I'm a rising junior at Thomas Jefferson High School for Science and Technology in Virginia. Academically, I'm very passionate about science and plan on pursuing a medical degree in the future. In my free time, I love to sing, dance, and play the violin. I also really enjoy reading cultural and spiritual books as well as writing poetry. Next, we have Ishita.
Hi, I'm Ishta. As Jill and Auntie said, I live in Edinburgh, so in Scotland. I am a second year medical student, and as a second year medical student, I'm really interested in how Black Lives Matter is a facet within equitable care for everyone, for all of our patients in the future, and that's what I'll be talking about today. My other interests in my spare time kind of include singing, reading. I'm a black belt in Taekwondo and spending time with my friends and family especially.
Thank you, Ishita. Next, we have Pranav.
Hi, everyone. My name is Pranav Arkatala, and I'm a sophomore at Lambert High School in Georgia. And in my free time, I like to play basketball, sing, and many other stuff like playing the violin, and I like traveling.
Thank you, Pranav. Next, we have Siddhi.
Hi, my name is Siri, and I'm a freshman at Lambert High School in Georgia also. And some of my hobbies include singing, dancing, and reading. And I'm also interested in the medical field.
Thank you, Siddhi. Next, we have Anvita.
Hi everyone, my name is Anvita Tangella, and I'm a fifth grader in Flores Elementary in Herndon, Virginia. Some of my hobbies are playing the Carnatic violin, reading, and writing.
Thank you, Anvita. And finally, we have Prabhat.
Hi, my name is Prabhat Tangela. I'm a junior at Westfield High School, and some of my hobbies include tennis and basketball, and I hope to pursue computer science in the future.
So now that you've gotten to know who we are, we'll get into the content. Our first topic of discussion today is animal welfare. I'll be going over this, and Anvita will also be adding her personal experiences as well as interesting tidbits from her own research. So before we begin, I want to go over a short quote. The greatness of a nation and its moral progress can be judged by the way its animals are treated. And this was said by none other than Mahatma Gandhi. So just keep that line in mind as we go over the next couple of slides. So when I first jumped to this slide, what did your eye immediately go to? For me, it's the very cute little dog on the bottom left of the screen, and it's actually my puppy. He joined our family in March 2017 and has been inseparable from us ever since. Now let's talk about the image on the right side. It's an image of cattle in a farm, and the reason for putting up these two images specifically is because when we think of animals to love and care for, our minds instantly go to dogs and cats. It's not too often that we see chicken and cattle. So the first point, animals are animals. It's human of us to find some more endearing than others, but we cannot deny the fact that they all need our help and in different ways. Domestic dogs from families who mistreat them need our help, as do bears and elephants mistreated in circuses and roadside shows, as do horses in horse rides. So putting aside species, breed, and color, we need to make a conscious effort to view all animals as one and ease their suffering in whatever way we can. So this quote I thought was very important to share. Where we live in suburban and urban communities, either in the US or other very well-to-do countries, for the most part, it's not very often that we find animals on the street suffering from injuries or starvation. When we go to some of the underdeveloped countries or even certain areas within our own country, there are many, many creatures who don't have food, water, and shelter. And even some who do, a family does own them, are left outside in dog houses by their owners when they go on a holiday or just normally. And they're usually in very bad shape. Field workers and organizations such as PETA actually go out and help these animals, and I'll be getting into more how you can volunteer with these organizations, research, and help. But before we get to that, there are many, many local animal shelters across the country, across the globe, in fact. Some have an age limit and others don't. So just doing a simple Google search will give you all a list of shelters around you, and you can sign up to participate in the ones you're eligible for based on age. Another very doable thing you can do to help as a teen is participate in rescue teams. There are actually lots of organizations with rescue teams that run purely on volunteers, and many of these rescue teams consist of teenagers as well. When we have school, obviously, we can't put aside our academics and prioritize this, but there are lots of teenagers who go out on weekends or holidays and assist the adult field workers in helping the animals. One of the other things you can do if you want to take initiative and show leadership is organize a pet food drive or fundraiser in your community to raise funds. These can be donated to local shelters and other organizations. And finally, the last but most important point is to start simple. Understanding just more about the ways in which animals are mistreated and advocating against them locally is enough to get started. These are just a couple, but I'm sure there are plenty of other opportunities out there if animal welfare, is truly a priority and you go out and take the initiative to do research. So this graph is meant to show you what you can save by going vegan for a month. You can save not only 30 animals, as you can see, the animal bar is very small in comparison to the other bars, because you can save 600 pounds of carbon dioxide emissions, 900 square feet of forest, and 33,000 gallons of water. Looking at these numbers shows you that compared to the 30 very important lives, the amount of water you can save is humongous and something very important to keep in mind considering the current water crises in many countries. Additionally, there are many health benefits of being vegan, especially as you grow older and cholesterol, blood pressure, they all become more imminent problems. If you're a vegan, it reduces risk of heart disease, lowers blood pressure, and protects against cancer. And I understand that it's very difficult for many people to suddenly switch their diet after years of being accustomed to eating meat and consume dairy as a part of culture. My family members personally are huge biryani lovers, and I can't ever imagine my brother being able to give up chicken. But if animals are truly a priority for you personally, and this is a specific issue you care about, and if you're willing, obviously, you can try going maybe just vegetarian for a week and slowly reducing your consumption of meat and animal products. For me personally, the whole idea of giving up a non-vegetarian lifestyle started this summer. Although I've always loved animals, I've been begging my parents for a puppy since I was 4, I've never made the connection that I'm eating the very animals I love. So I decided to become vegan for lots of reasons, primarily animals, as well as health and the environment. And although in the middle, I have consumed the occasional gulab jamun, I am working towards making it a permanent lifestyle. And if this specific thing doesn't work for you, that's okay too, because there are many, many other things you can do to help the animals you care about. The last important point we'll go over is key organizations that work towards animals' rights. PETA stands for People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals. It's mainly focused on shedding light on ways animals are treated in circuses and labs, and it employs field workers that go out and give protection to as well as feed hungry animals, especially in India, where it's rare to go a day without seeing a stray dog. You can learn more about all of these organizations and quite a few more actually by connecting with them on social media or simply searching up the organization's names, and you can visit their website. Well, they list plenty of volunteer opportunities for teenagers, even children and above. Now that we've covered these points, Anvita will be sharing her personal experiences with animal rights, as well as information she found from researching on what animals are going through in different parts of the world.
Thank you, Medha. So hello everyone, my name is Anvita Tangala. And most of you may not know this, but dogs can smell the unknown odor of COVID-19. But people must wonder, is this maltreatment of animals? Well, the animals that do this are trained medical assistants, so in hospitals. So they go through a queue line and they get tested also. They each go to a cabin where there's a DNA sample of a person and they smell that. And if that person does have COVID, they sit there and don't move. But it's also hard for the people that take care of the dogs, because before they get cleaned and disinfected, they go near some people and they can transmit COVID easier than people. Another problem I have thought about is stray dogs in places like India. Stray dogs must be a thought each of you have thought about at least once. So how can we help these stray dogs in India and other rural places like India? Since we have to be safe because stray dogs might carry some diseases like rabies or other other diseases, we have to be safe. But many people are actually helping stray dogs by giving them food and putting other old like leftovers of food that they ate in their house to stray dogs, because we can help them during this time of quarantine. They have no people to go near or get some food from or beg, so we have to help them and we have to take care of them even though they have diseases. We have to treat stray dogs like every other dog, even if it's your family pet.
Thank you, Anvita. I really loved all your points, especially what you said about making sure we stay safe when we go near stray dogs, because our personal health should always be our priority, our personal health and safety. But at the same time, we can't ignore that there are some dogs who need our help. So just placing, if you have something in your hand that you're definitely not going to finish eating, just placing it somewhere near them, they can come and eat it. Just keeping your safety as a priority, but making sure that you're helping them as well. Our next topic, as I mentioned, is the parallels between Black Lives Matter and medicine. When you first think of these two topics, it's hard to find a relation between them, but Ishita will be talking about why they both do connect and why that connection is very important.
Thank you, Medha. So many of you may have not heard of Black Lives Matter prior to the events in May with the death of George Floyd and the focus that has now been given to police brutality. However, Black Lives Matter has been a movement that's been around for a long time, and now it's gaining a lot of traction, and it's had quite a lot of viral moments in the past and this year as well, and a lot of focus in the news that it's maybe not had in the past. So today I'm going to be talking about, could we move on to the next slide, please? Thank you. Today I'll be talking about 3 points, which are going to be separated into 2 categories. So the first is what everyone can do now, and that I'm going to be talking about how you can educate yourself and others and campaign for change. And my second kind of area of talking is going to be about my own experience as a medical student and how specifically Black Lives Matter applies to medicine. So can we move on to the next slide? Perfect, thank you. So if we click on the slide once, we'll get step 1, which is talking about yourself. So what many people have already done and what everyone should do is educate yourself, whether that's via social media or whether that's via the internet or articles or even books. So educate yourself based on the issue, regardless of what issue it is. And the next step, step 2, is to then go and discuss what you've learned with your friends and family. The way that I've managed to do this is by talking to my friends. So when I was growing up, most of my friends in high school are white, so they don't have the same personal experience that I have. And by speaking to them, I was able to educate them as to my experience. And with my family, my parents don't necessarily have the same access to social media that I have. So what they hear is based off the news, and what I hear is based off maybe Instagram or Twitter. So we can have good discussions with both those groups of people based on the knowledge that you have and what other people might not have. Step 3 is school and work. So with regards to step 2 and step 3, my friends, because we were able to have good discussions, we were able to bring up, many people within my school were able to petition the school and petition the head teacher and say the change that we wanted to have made based on our own experiences as people of color and as Black people. So you can do the same thing, whether that's in your school institution, whether you're a high schooler or whether you're at university like I am, or you can even do this in your work and you can campaign for the changes that need to be made. Step 4 is taking this a little bit further and going to whatever local powers you have. So in my example, this was going to our members of parliament, and many people within our city actually emailed them and wrote letters saying the experiences that they've had and how they want to see change made, whether that's with the school curriculum or otherwise. Step 5 is taking any other opportunity the way that we're all doing today. So you'll find that all of us kids have come along online and we've decided to tell you guys about something that we find important. And that's something that you guys should do as well, whether that's coming online and doing a webinar about something that you find important, or if you look at the pictures on the right-hand side, you'll see that these are my Instagram stories archives. So what I've been sharing with the people that follow me in case they've not seen what I've educated myself on. So that's something that we can all do depending on what we have access to. So moving on to my own experience as a medical student, I'm going to be talking about three things that have kind of happened. So the first and foremost thing is the formation of a Black and ethnic minorities medical group within our own university. And this group was formed to improve the lives of people of color who are staff and students at the university, and they can then bring up issues, whether it's to do with patient care, whether it's to do with experience that they've had, and have that group to be able to communicate. And we thought that was really important to have. And now we're campaigning for change and speaking to people that are higher up in the med school to see what we need to do to move forward. The next thing that we've managed to do is fundraise for a charity called Melanin Medics. So our year group, this kind of started off as a really small initiative within our own year group of around 200 students. And we decided that we wanted to walk, run, or cycle a total of 4,050 kilometers. I'm not really sure what that is in miles, but it's maybe around half that in miles in 2 weeks as a year group. And we decided that we wanted to raise around £2,025 for Melanin Medics, which is a charity which supports Black and Afro-Caribbean aspiring doctors throughout their career. We achieved this target, and we thought this was really important because by allowing and by supporting Black and Afro-Caribbean medics, which we don't actually find a lot of, even within my own year group, they're not very well represented. By increasing the number of people that can join the profession, we're able to increase their accessibility and give them a seat at the table so they can talk about what's important to them, which we thought was really important. By our year group doing this at the beginning, many other year groups in the same medical school have also started fundraising for different charities like Black Minds Matter, who campaign for mental health, UK Black Pride, which incorporates LGBT and Black people, and again, Melanin Medics, which I've already discussed. So the last thing that we've done so far is participate in the call to improve medical research and overcome biases to reform medical education and care, which I'll go on to in a second. So if we move on to the next slide, you'll be able to see the fundraising that we've done. So again, the image on the right is a picture of me and my friend and the walking that we did and our Strava route. And if we play the video, it's one of the videos of my walk. It's just quite a quick one. And that's just me and my sister going on a walk. Thought it would be nice to include. So the next slide should show you a bit more about the medical education, which I plan on talking about. So there have been many issues that have been raised that people of colour actually have noticed quite a lot in university, and some medical students that live in the UK have really brought this up and made a massive difference. So on the right-hand side, you'll see a picture of Kawasaki's disease, and you can see the presentation of that disease on white skin versus black skin. And actually what people have found is that there are many dermatological conditions which people know how to look for in white skin, and therefore they're better taken care of because we can find these diseases easily and quickly. Whereas in people of color, because us as medical students aren't taught how to look for these conditions, as you can see, it's a lot harder to find because there's no red bumps. It makes it much harder for us to take care of patients because we don't know what to look for and we're not taught what to look for. This was really clearly pointed out by a medical student in the UK, Malone Mukwende. I've written down his name underneath, and he's actually created a handbook called Mind the Gap, which is now looking at being published, and it shows you clinical signs on black and brown skin. I also know that there's some webinars online, which I plan on joining myself, which kind of show you more of these clinical conditions. So other problems that I can also describe is leprosy. So in leprosy, in white people, you'll see big red rings, and they're described as red or erythematous, and you can't use those words to describe these conditions on brown or black skin. And even in COVID-19, there was a girl in the UK who phoned up the NHS saying that she was feeling really ill and all of her symptoms were getting worse and worse, but they said, oh, come back if your skin ends up being blue. Obviously, you'll know if you have brown skin or black skin, your skin doesn't go blue. So then how long do you have to wait before you can go see someone at the NHS? Much too long. No one's getting the care that they need because we don't know what to look for. Another thing that you'll see on the left-hand side is a nursing textbook, which is actually a bit more insidious. So it's talking about pain relief. You might not be able to read what's on there, but what it's basically saying is it kind of describes different ethnic groups and how they might respond to pain relief. So, for example, it says Indians who follow Hindu practices believe that pain must be endured in preparation for a better life in the next cycle. And Black people often report higher pain intensity than other cultures. They believe suffering and pain are inevitable. And all of these kind of groups follow the same talk. So basically, what this is doing is encouraging medical students not to give ethnic groups the same pain relief that white people get, and therefore they're unable to actually be treated properly, and they have much worse outcomes. So Black women are actually much more likely to die within childbirth, which is an awful outcome and very insidious. So that's what I have to talk about today. I've listed a couple sources below so you can educate yourself a little bit further, but thank you.
Thank you, Ishita. That was so very inspiring, especially because you talk not only what we can do as teens to help, but you mentioned so many things that you as an individual and your fellow medical students have already done. So that was very inspiring and informative. Thank you. And as me and I believe City said, in the future, we want to pursue medicine as well. So this was very educative for all of us. So thank you. Next, we'll be going over COVID-19. We all have been keeping up, most of us have been keeping up to date with in the news how it's been affecting people within America and what we can do to help prevent the spread. But a lot of us aren't aware of what's going on in around the world, especially in countries that don't have all the resources and education America offers. So a couple weeks ago in the summer, I performed for a charity concert, virtually, of course, that was meant to raise funds for citizens in Yemen. Because what we really don't know, and I think in one of Ishita's slides as well, one of her story archives showed a picture. Yemen is the worst humanitarian crisis in the world. Some problems they're going through include a huge water crisis, warring between multiple parties, and that's affecting the citizens. And now with COVID-19, it's in one of the worst places in world history. So Siti and Pranav will be talking about what Yemen and other underdeveloped countries are going through, such as unemployment and other important points, and they'll be talking about what we can do to help them.
Hi. Today we'll be talking about four main topics. We'll be talking about economy, how COVID is affecting communities around the world, education, and finally, how you can help. So first, we know that everyone is suffering from this pandemic, but while we're consumed by our own problems, sometimes we won't see like other people's and a lot of the problems that are happening around the world. So first, I wanted to just tell you some statistics about what's happening with the economy around the world. So countries all over the world are affected by this, obviously, and there's been a huge loss of income in almost all sectors. Many people are losing jobs, the stock market crashed. Dow Jones especially has dropped by 13%, and the proportion of people out of work in the US has hit 10%. And the travel industry has been drastically damaged as many people are canceling trips and vacations. And many third world countries, which rely solely on tourism, have taken a huge hit. And personally, my dad, who works for an airline company, and so our family is also being affected by this. And so for communities around the world, while it might seem that our own lives have been turned upside down by the pandemic, many communities around the world are suffering much worse. Poverty has been exponentially increased, and so has unemployment and lives lost. And also another problem is education. In order to enforce social distancing, schools around the US, our country, have made the switch to virtual learning. And but this is not feasible to a lot of countries around the world. And more than 1.5 billion children are out of school. A lot of countries, such as India, South Africa, and other countries, had already been struggling to provide education, and they're now suffering much more. This pandemic has also reversed decades in the fight for equal education for girls, refugees, and minorities. For example, in I believe Saudi Arabia or Pakistan, a lot of the girls have been taken out of school and their parents are using it as an excuse to take their girls out of school. And there's a lot of organizations that are helping make sure that these girls are going back to school. And finally, how you can help. And Pranav will be going over that.
So, how can you help? You can make personal choices to help limit the spread of COVID in your community, like wearing a mask, sanitizing your hands frequently, and always maintaining distance from other people in public are all great ways to do this. You can volunteer at local hospitals, raise money for organizations, or donate food to the poor. For example, my sister and I are involved in this volunteering organization called VT Seva International, and it is an organization which aims to help rebuild and restructure the underprivileged and underdeserved communities. 1 or 2 months into the pandemic, both my sister and I helped in making around 500 masks and donated at Piedmont Hospital in Atlanta, Georgia. We are also making masks and raising funds for Sanjeevani hospitals in India. So far, we raised $760, and we want to raise more. And something else is um, in India that I can do is probably donate like books and for people in the villages and people who don't have like clothes or can't afford a computer. So that's how you can help.
And finally, we wanted to talk about some organizations, some international organizations that you can either donate to or volunteer for. And so first is the World Health Organization and UNICEF, and also the National Foundation for Infectious Diseases, and finally the CDC and American Red Cross here in the United States.
Thank you, Siddhi and Pranav. I wanted to highlight, all your points were amazing and very important, but I wanted to highlight one specific point that Siddhi mentioned, that girls are being pulled out of school with COVID-19 as an excuse. And she said it takes us years back in the fight for rights for girls and for females and males, in perspective of gender, for education. So I wanted to bring this up because it highlights the issues that COVID-19 also brings with it. It's not just one issue. It's like a whole bundle that's like a package that's coming with Corona. So there's so much we have to do, and there's so many new issues that are also coming up. So that's a really important point that you made. Lastly, we'll be going over steps that teens can take beginning now. Because usually what happens for me personally and lots of other teens, I'm sure, is that even though we get ideas to do different things, a lot of them huge and wide scale, we say tomorrow. The purpose of this section is to highlight what you can do at this moment to make the impact you want to make. First, I'll be going over just a general template to get started. First, educate yourself on the issue. There's no possible difference you can make if you don't have the necessary knowledge, and also if you don't obtain that knowledge in the right way. Refer to multiple sources, preferably first-hand accounts, and extract the correct information. You can also visit organizations' websites who are already doing work on the issue that you're interested in so that you can help to further that work or begin a new effort. And finally, be critical of what you read. There's one very important thing to keep in mind is that as news and information spread, they tend to decrease in truth and the fact becomes more blurred. So understanding the facts using the techniques I just mentioned, and then only take action. Next, educate others and increase awareness in your immediate surrounding and community. Ishita went over specifically how to educate. First, educate yourself, then your family, and then expand. So talk to your family and close friends. Let them know what you've learned and what they can do as individuals as well. Post online on social media, as Ishita said, in stories on Instagram. Spread the word on the call to take action. And finally, expand. Write to local elected officials, not only voicing your concern, but proposing ideas and steps of action to take. Start a blog, host a podcast to talk about the issue, submit an article to a newspaper based on what you're interested in. For me personally, I'm a strong writer. So if for any issue I'm passionate about, possibility for me would be to start a blog or to write an article that highlights what the public needs to focus on in the issue and submit it for publication in newspaper or any other public media. With enough effort and in the right way, there's no limit to the impact that we can make as teens. Next, Ishita will be speaking more about practical examples where these techniques have worked and share her personal experiences, as well as specific topics that need to be addressed in this way.
So I'm going to be talking a little bit about a bit more about what you can do first of all. So obviously, if you don't have money, which as young people, we don't necessarily have lots that we can donate to charity, even if we want to, we can do our best to fundraise, as I've already mentioned, and as Meda and Siri and Pranav have also been doing, and support charities in that way. You can petition those in power and hold them accountable. So if you're old enough to support what you believe in, you should vote for people that uphold and make changes that you believe are important. Support businesses and individuals whose business values that you actually believe in and whose message you believe in, to support them and to give them more power from you. And if you don't have money, there's also stream to donate videos on YouTube, which is where you go on these videos, which are usually like an hour or two long. You can just play them in the background or you can listen to them. And usually they have lots of ads. So if you play them and you don't skip the ads, they generate a lot of ad revenue and therefore they then donate that to charity. You can either watch these videos and just keep them running in the background, which is what I was doing while I was educating myself during kind of May, June, July, or you can make your own ones as well. Also, definitely use social media, as we've mentioned before, and then I'm going to talk a little bit more about social media and how it's made an actual difference in specific issues. So with all these various issues which I'm about to discuss, social media has had a massive, made a massive difference. So with regards to COVID-19, many people have been gaining information and have been making a difference, whether it's petitioning other people to wear masks or spreading information via social media. Obviously, you do have to be careful with what you're paying attention to, but it's a good way to broaden your experience and worldviews via just the news, which can be biased, before you then go more specifically and try and learn a little bit more. Another thing that has been addressed on social media is the wealth gap issue. So many people on Twitter or Instagram or even TikTok have actually been petitioning people who have power through their own wealth and have been petitioning them to make a difference, whether it's donate with their workers, for example, with the company Amazon, or whether it's to do with climate change. So actually, many people have petitioned Jeff Bezos. So he's actually now created a climate change fund, which is obviously making a difference and is really good to hear. Another thing that obviously always had a bit of traction on social media is Black Lives Matter, which has now really taken off in May, June, and July. And even now it's still going, even if the news isn't showing it as much as it should. And Kim Kardashian actually was using her own influence and petitioning President Trump to allow him to release people who have been unfairly imprisoned. Also, as Meda and Siri and Pranav have also, I think, mentioned, Yemen is a major issue, which I only got to know of because of social media, and loads of people are making are taking steps to improve this, using the steps I've kind of mentioned on the left-hand side to do with all these separate issues. As Gen Z, or even as millennials, as young people, and even as not young people, as whatever age you are, you can either use social media or you can, use it to kind of educate yourself or use it to make a change. And this really does make a difference.
Thank you, Ishita. You mentioned that Jeff Bezos, Kim Kardashian, lots of public figures, not even public, just billionaires, with lots of money are doing something to make an impact. I just wanted to add one other example. Recently, around a couple months ago, I saw a documentary on Netflix about Bill Gates, and it was he does so much work through his foundation, he and Melinda Gates, but it was highlighting one specific thing. So lots of rural areas don't have toilets. They don't have the proper infrastructure to set up a good, clean drainage system either. So they've been actually going out and finding economically and naturally sustainable ways to set up that infrastructure in those areas. And that was just another example I wanted to add, as in there are lots of people who are doing things with the money they have and the power they have. And even if, we don't have as much money or as much influence as those public figures, there is lots of stuff that we can do, as we've been talking about during this webinar. Next, Prabhat will be talking about how impacting the people in your close community and surroundings can eventually lead to a global impact.
Yeah, so as Meda stated, I'll be talking about how local impact can translate globally. Many of the teens and youth around the world believe that if they don't make a global impact, their help doesn't matter. However, the youth can make a huge impact in their local community and impact the global community through their local efforts. Fundraising in your local community is a great way to impact the local community by simultaneously impacting the global community. Fundraising allows us to provide a service for our local community, for example, tutoring, and donate funds to an organization with a global reach. Personally, I'm passionate about tutoring people about subjects that I personally have interest in. For example, my friends and I started a class to teach the subject geography to kids in elementary school. And using the payment we receive for these classes, we have been supporting Sanjeevani Hospital, which is a hospital providing free healthcare for parts of the rural population in Andhra Pradesh in India. Fundraising activities like tutoring can make a huge impact, especially in an online school environment where students might not get the help they need to succeed academically. There are countless organizations that need help, so the funds generated by by fundraising in the local community can help many people around the world. I hope to continue impacting my local community and the global community simultaneously.
Thank you, Prabhat. Those were some really good points. So that's all we have for you guys today in terms of content. Next, we'll be having interactions and a question and answer session. So first, we've already had a couple of questions from the audience and other members. The first one, this one is for all of us. What have we as individuals done specifically to combat the issues that we spoke about, and how did we feel when we helped? Who wants to take this one first? Okay, I'll start off and then I'll give it to someone else. So aside from animal welfare, there are lots of other things that I really, really care about. I'll start with saying what I have done for animals though. Like I said, the whole idea of animals, and even though I've always loved them, the whole idea of actually doing something to help them, going out of my comfort zone, started this summer. Actually, after I watched a documentary on Netflix about veganism and how we can, how there's so many side effects, really beneficial side effects for it. So I gave up meat, first of all. It took a while to give up dairy products and everything, especially because it's so ingrained in our lifestyles. And that's why I also understand if not everyone can give up their lifestyle so immediately. But it was a very gradual process and something I'm still working on. So that was one thing I've done for animals. Another cause I'm really passionate about is there are so many children in underprivileged communities around us right here. Even though we live in generally very well-to-do areas, there are many children who are from underrepresented minority communities, such as Hispanic children. And I have been parts of organizations that bring specifically STEM education to teach them. There's one museum that I did an internship in where we go out and teach different pretty challenging science concepts to Latina girls, like 5th graders, 6th graders. That was one thing I've done. I've done lots of other things for kids as well through tutoring programs. So these are just 2 things I've done for 2 of the causes I'm passionate about. Another thing I want to bring up is that necessarily helping others doesn't mean you have to go out of your way specifically, because in the beginning, when we introduced ourselves, we all mentioned our own passions. For me, I love singing and dancing. And there's lots of charities that raise money actually by holding concerts, which, as I mentioned, for Yemen, there was one such concert. So by pursuing the things you love, you can actually make a side effect as a difference. And it's a really cool thing to think about. And I feel like there's no reason why you shouldn't be using your passions for those reasons. Who wants to go next? I think we'll just go in the order that we've spoken. So next we'll have Ishita.
So I've obviously mentioned a lot about what I've done with regards to specifically Black Lives Matter, especially within my own community. I can go over that a little bit, but I think firstly, kind of just saying making a difference. So trying to make a difference within your own community at your school or local institution, and setting up a group for something that you're passionate in really does make a difference. So you have someone else that you can bounce back and forth and have ideas within, they can give you a different perspective as well. Fundraising as best as you can for causes that you know will make a difference and that you've checked, and trying to make that difference yourself as well, educating yourself and others, and also kind of looking at wider issues and seeing how something that you're learning about or that you've noticed within your own lectures, for example, with me, and noticing why are they not kind of explaining the difference between ethnic groups and stuff, and then realizing that and then making a difference the way that other medical students have, I think is really important. With regards to how that makes me feel, I've always supported Black Lives Matter for years and years, but it was only kind of this summer that I really started making an active difference and started proactively calling people out and actually saying, you know what, this isn't okay, we need to make a change. And that makes me feel a lot better about myself, because otherwise these problems seem like such huge global issues that are never going to be solved. But now that everyone is kind of taking those little steps, you can see a major difference that's been made and that's starting to be made. And we need to keep that motivation up, and we need to keep that traction going so that we can continue to make a difference.
I actually really agree with what you said. And when you were talking, a specific analogy came into my head that I'm sure all Indians will be familiar with. A bunch of ants together can kill a snake. So if we say that snake is one of the issues that we've talked about in so many other big global issues, and the ants are us and the small steps that we take, if enough people put in their efforts and in the right way, then it's not like one person has to put in so much effort. If we all work together, I feel it makes a huge difference. City in front of you guys have anything to add about your experiences, what you have done, and how do you feel about helping?
As we've already talked about, like all summer, we were sewing masks so we could donate to our local hospital. And we've already been hearing about, like, we live in Georgia, so we're being hit really hard by the pandemic, and a lot of the people I know have already got COVID, and they've been to the hospital, and I feel really bad, and we've just been in the house. We've not been going out at all, and we don't have to since we're just school kids, and like a lot of the people who have different jobs and they need to go out, they have it worse and they're getting the virus. So we're glad that we can help, in our own way. Like, we like to sew and do things together, and we're glad that we can like use our talents or whatever we do to like help other people. And it makes me feel like happy that I've done something, other than just feeling bad for other people. It makes me feel happy that I've done something.
Yeah. As I mentioned before too, you guys said it makes you feel good that you've used your own talents to help. And that's really important because each of us do have our own things we're passionate about, we're talented in. And if we can use that to help other people, then I think that's the best it can get. Anvita, do you have anything to add?
Well, I've just been like, helping a little bit, little by little, because like I can only do so much since I'm this small. So, I've just been like, like giving books to people like that want them, and like collecting money and giving them to frontline workers. So that's it, I think.
Yeah. So, me and her are both part of organization called FYLH, which is Future Youth Leaders of Humanity, and this organization works to look at different global causes and support them through fundraising. So, what we do is, like, the cause we're mainly focused on right now is like rural populations in India and giving them healthcare. So, we have been fundraising for the Sanjeevani Hospital in Kuchipudi, Andhra Pradesh, India, which is a hospital that offers free service for rural populations. And we've been working at that for the past couple years. And personally, like I stated before, I love to tutor kids. So I find subjects that I'm interested in, and I tutor them about different subjects.
Yeah, that's actually another example of how we can use what we're interested in to help as well. Are we missing anyone, or did we cover? I think we got everyone, right? Okay. So we have a question for Ishita specifically. So most of the panelists and viewers are from the US, and they live in a community where there are quite a few people of color and people of similar race. The community I live, there are lots of Indians. My school is like 50% Indian. So being from Scotland, are there lots of people who are of color and of your race as well, or is it predominantly white? And if not, what can we do to handle the discrimination that sometimes comes with being in a minority group?
Okay, so I've noticed like a bit of both. So I lived in England in the past, and I know some places in England and even some places in Scotland are very rich with like Asian people, whether that's Indian or Pakistani or Bangladeshi, etc. So, however, where I live, within my school, there was a few Telugu people, which is I'm Telugu, so that's a kind of like a subset of India. It's a language that we speak. And I was quite lucky that I had those people, but they were in different year groups. Within my own year group, there was maybe 4 Indian people and there was maybe 2 Black people. So very few actually in comparison. And there'd be many times where I would walk into a room and I would be the only person of color there. And I would notice that quite often throughout my life, whether it was in various different things. And then I was very lucky because when I got to medical school, I was absolutely amazed because our year group is so diverse, especially like it seems, but it seems that way because I'm not used to having that many people. So even if there's a 30% to 70% ethnic minority to white people thing, that'll still feel like a lot when I've had so little in the past. But it still seems really cool. We have people from all over the place, but actually still very few Black people, which is a real shame, I think, which is why we thought that was such an important issue to raise and to raise money for. With regards to how we can handle discrimination, I think it's really about the work that everyone started doing now and kind of saying, okay, this is the discrimination that I've experienced, whether it's microaggressions, so little things rather than people being overtly racist in your face and saying, okay, this is why this isn't okay. This is what I've experienced. This is what other people have experienced, and educating people as to why that's not okay. Because otherwise, the white people in my year, they might have not noticed. They would, so my friends, for example, they would say, oh, that felt like something was wrong. Like if someone was called a Paki, which is a racial slur, and they would say, oh, that feels like it's wrong, but no one ever said anything because no one said anything. But now people are speaking up. People feel more inclined to actually say something. And I think that's how we can make a difference, by speaking up. It just takes one person.
Yeah, definitely. There's actually one specific question that we got for City in Pranav. So since you guys talked a lot about COVID-19 and how it's affecting other countries that don't have all the resources to handle it, there was one point, like I mentioned, that I said I really loved that you mentioned that in Saudi Arabia, there are girls who also are getting pulled out of school and there's side effects that are happening due to this one big issue. Can you elaborate a little more on the specific other issues that come with COVID-19, kind of how it's like a chain, if there are other things and how we can, by solving one, we can help in other areas as well?
Yes. So the main problem that COVID-19 has caused is the loss of life, obviously, and this has affected like mostly everything. A lot of doctors in hospitals and nurses are getting affected by the virus. They can't avoid that. And another thing that COVID-19 has been affecting is the economy, as we talked about. And the economy practically affects everything else. So, it affects unemployment, homelessness, poverty, and it affects so many things. Like, it's impossible to list like all of them. It affects like almost every aspect.
Yeah, definitely. That makes a lot of sense. I'm looking to see if you have a couple more questions.
Could we check the
Oh,
YouTube and the Facebook?
yeah, we could do. I've just seen a question here. It's asking 2 questions actually for Maida. So I'll ask you the first and then you can respond, then I'll give you the second one. The first one is regarding the veganism that you've mentioned with regards to your animal welfare. So if everyone goes vegan, wouldn't there be a risk to other businesses? So if everyone goes vegan, what's going to happen to the domestic animals that are raised for that production? And is there not going to be an overpopulation of vegans? So with regards to the food that they have to eat as well, whether that's almond milk or something like that.
Yeah, so that's a very commonly asked question. And even that's one thing I also wondered before. Obviously, after I became vegan, I did more research specifically on that. So the first point is that the animals that are overpopulating the world, occupy 30 to 50% of Earth's land. And they're the same animals that are populating our stomachs, our colons, our arteries. It's all domesticated animals that serve as food. So there's no risk of overpopulation of other species of animals. So now we can target specifically domesticated animals. Now, talking about that, there's actually one example in history of cigarette smoking. It was not too recently, but it wasn't very a long couple of years before either, that the side effects of cigarette smoking and all the health issues associated with it came to light. And it wasn't like the next day everyone woke up, threw out their cigarettes, and stopped buying it ever. It was a very, very slow decrease. So this is an example that shows the industries that breed in bulk slow down, whether it's the tobacco industry or the animal industry that create products in bulk. It's a very gradual decrease. So there's not going to be a sudden day we wake up and there's suddenly overpopulation. And another point is that animal populations usually regulate by themselves. Sometimes it's reproductive limits, like finding partners and survival of offspring, and other times it's environmental pressure, because there's not enough grass or enough food in the world that can feed all the animals that will survive if everyone becomes vegan. There can only be a certain number of animals in a certain geographic area before the resources are too few. So when this happens, only the animals that are lucky to get enough food survive. And we can actually save much more lives by not killing the animals in the first place than, stopping the industry and letting them feed themselves. And now also, it's not, vegans will not take over the world anytime soon, because even I was very hesitant. And as I said, my brother loves their dog and he always says he likes animals more than humans. But I can't imagine him ever giving up non-veg, because it's so ingrained into our culture. It's so ingrained into our lifestyle of eating it. And it's actually not possible for populations everywhere to go vegan, because there are lots of remote indigenous colonies where they survive because they can survive on anything else because of where they live and their resources. They have to eat meat. And even in places where it is possible, in like our area, well-to-do countries, people are very reluctant to commit to it, as I said, because meat is an important part of a lot of our lifestyles. So let's say that some or more people in the near future, veganism gets big enough and that it becomes a mainstream diet and farm animals aren't bred. As I said, it's going to happen very, very gradually, because it's going to be less and less people buying meat and animal products, and then the sales will go down. They'd buy less from the supplier, and the supplier would stop selling them slowly again because they'll see the sales aren't as good. So I feel like it's a lot to do with a lot of other things like economy and stuff, which I don't know too much about. But from what I know, I think that's definitely not something we should be worried about.
Okay, thank you. And another question which I'm actually quite interested in the answer to is, could you tell us a little bit more about what specific organizations are doing, like the ones that you mentioned before?
Yeah, so there's one organization. So I talked about PETA for a bit, but I'll just elaborate a bit on that. I knew about PETA before because it's a big organization in India, specifically PETA India. But only after I got Instagram and I started following them, I actually saw a lot of the work they did. What they do is they have lots of people that go, I don't want to say undercover. Actually, I don't even know how they do it, but they get pictures and videos from inside circuses, slaughterhouses, labs, many of the places, and highlight all the negativity and all the mistreatment that's happening to animals that we are not aware of because it happens in disclosed areas. And the more direct thing they do is they have lots of field workers. And those are basically volunteers. They're not paid. They're volunteers who go out, and it's their job to go help dogs left outside. Because in lots of places, when people can't care for their dogs and they have dogs, they leave them outside in dog houses and they go out and help them, give them food, give them water. So that's one thing they do. The Humane Society for the US is actually focused on labs, preventing animal testing, and basically making sure animals aren't mistreated for science. Because they also show a lot of theories in which we kind of correlate animals and humans, and we try to use all the results we get from animals to humans, and that hasn't worked a lot in the past, and it's actually detrimental to human lives as well. So that's some of the stuff they do. I think that's all the questions we have for today. So if anyone else has any last points. Oh,
Just
yeah.
before, I have a question for Anvita. So I was just wondering if personally, what's your opinion on using dogs to track COVID? Because obviously you've mentioned the pros and cons. I just wanted to see what side you would take.
I would like personally, I think it's not maltreatment, but like they like dogs, like it's also harder for the people that take care of them, like I mentioned before, because they can transmit COVID. They can't get it, but they can transmit it. So I mean, it's not maltreatment, but like the dogs are trained. So like they're trained medical assistants, like they work in hospitals, like they comfort people in hospitals. So like they're trained dogs. So I don't think it's bad, but like they could also like use like more like easier ways to like get them to sniff it out instead of like just pushing them to do it.
Okay.
Thank you. I quite enjoyed hearing that.
So I think all of us gave a lot of information about our specific points. I just wanted to say one thing. Since we all talked specifically on the subjects that we were going to talk about today, are there any other global issues that we haven't talked about but we can highlight really shortly that are happening, whether it's gender disparities in education, anything, any issues? Just feel free to just talk if you have any points that we haven't mentioned.
Just with regards to, again, Black Lives Matter a little bit, but then I'll go on to speak about something else. I just wanted to say that we really need to take the time to kind of check our preformed stereotypes. So even within medical students who are supposed to be really educated, they believe, like there was a survey done, and they believe that Black skin is actually thicker than white skin with no foundation. And they believe also that their nerve endings are different, which is why they experience pain differently. And that's kind of maybe an extrapolation made from a small sample size, which is where the textbook came from. So the textbook wasn't trying to do harm, it was trying to be helpful and it was trying to be informative. But when you extrapolate and you don't have enough research that's been done, and because you don't have enough research, you extrapolate a small sample size of data to a wider population, you can't be making those comparisons. So there is a need for research to be done. And I think that's really important. And with regards to another issue, I think obviously you've mentioned Yemen a little bit, which is a major, major issue. But I also think we really need to bring up climate change because it's massive. It started off with all of us knew about climate change for a very long time, but it took one girl, Greta Thunberg, to protest outside of her school for many, many days. And then everyone else started to join in. And now she's been given a seat at like the UN, and she's been allowed to kind of voice her opinions and everything. And now we've began to kind of gain some traction with that, but more work definitely needs to be done because it's only getting worse and worse. And even though it's kind of decreased because of the pandemic, that's only because of the pandemic, and it's going to get worse as soon as restrictions are lifted. So that's something major that we need to focus on, because otherwise we won't have a planet to make more changes with.
Yeah, definitely. And within, since you mentioned climate change, which is a huge issue, within environmental issues, there's lots of other things such as deforestation, acid rain, lots of things that come as a byproduct of us not being careful. So that's something we also need to focus on. City in front of, you guys have any global issues that you guys can just mention?
I think pollution, water pollution is a big thing, and that we need to like initiate more ways to like clean our waters in many parts of the world. So I think if we do that, it'll we'll have better drinking water in like some places like India, because like water pollution is a big thing there, and people just like because they're not educated and they don't have that those resources to like actually because some rivers like some people like just don't have like they're not educated and they don't know what where to put the trash, so they just like put it in the river. So I think I think if we provide those people like houses, good houses, education, they'll it's going to be better, and they're not going to pollute the waters.
Yeah, water pollution is huge. And I mentioned earlier about Bill Gates and what the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation has been doing for infrastructure, toilets, and better drainage systems in a lot of rural communities. And that's water pollution is actually one of the reasons, because if they don't have toilets, then and if they don't have drainage systems, good disposal drainage systems, then a lot of that trash and human waste is going to go into their water, making it non-drinkable. So it's a very important issue. Thank you. Anvita and Prabhat, do you guys have any you want to mention?
I have like one, but it's not really that global. It's just like in the US, like just one. It's the like wildfires that are happening.
That's actually global. Australia, lots of wildfires are happening.
Yeah.
How do you feel
Like-
about, what do you think we can do?
I mean, they could like I don't really feel like that bad because like I'm not right there right now, but like I've seen like lots of videos and pictures that people have posted. So yeah, I feel like we can do something to help like fundraise for the people that have lost like their homes and like because of that.
Yeah, definitely. Prabhat, do you have any?
Yeah. So like in the U.S., I feel like most of us are like pretty blessed with like having equal opportunity in education, but like around the world, like there's a lot of like uh third world countries that don't have like the same opportunities we do. Like for example, like the new technological advancements in fields like artificial intelligence, robotics, like those are like the jobs that are going to be provided to people in the future. And like if people don't get the necessary like education they need for those jobs, they can't have the job, right? So like, and a lot of people in third world countries aren't getting education for jobs that'll be available to them in the future. So I feel like that's a big problem.
Yeah, definitely. And that kind of goes back into how so many issues are actually tied together. Because if there's no education, then there's no jobs. And that actually, as a whole, affects the economy of lots of countries if the workspace, if the workspace isn't as good as it should be. I have one last one that I just wanted to bring up. This is something that teens actually can't do much about as compared to the other issues we talked about, but also something that we can raise awareness about at least. It's government accountability and transparency, because a lot of times what happens is there's very, very little transparency, and that's when all this political tension and lots of, as I said, side effect issues happen. So that's just one issue that's also big and needs to be addressed. And I don't think we have any more questions. Let me just check the YouTube.
Yeah, wonderful presentation, all of you. I mean, each one of you, you have put down the points, you have put down your solutions, and we can always judge, maybe, you are not that experienced, or you are naive at something, or whatever it is. But the most important part, I feel, all of it is to talk about something, to talk about, some places our minds just shut off, like we don't think about it in our day-to-day work. We are busy, everything. But I think a webinar like this, with you enthusiastic students wanting to do something is in your mind, that's just so lovely to see. Thank you all. Thank you so much for being involved, giving us, as parents also, making us think. And I'm sure that you have made many students and our teenagers and our youth to think as well. Thank you so much. So do we have any questions?
Nope, we don't have any on the live chat.
Okay, so yes, I really would take this time again to say that if you want your kid, you have seen the kids from all age groups, they are participating in improving their communication skills, reaching out to so many. So if you want your kid or you as a parent to mentor, please email us at webinar@letustalkit.com. We will be happy to have your perspective as well. So we have our professional webinars every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays from 12 to 1 p.m. EST. And for next week, we have on Tuesday, we have declutter, detox, de-stress, best practices to empower life and adapt simple ways for healthy lifestyle. On Wednesday, we have statistical modeling and optimization technologies to solve most of the problems in business verticals. And on Thursday, we have will robots replace humans? Are our jobs at risk as artificial intelligence takes more center stage? If you want to be also you want to participate or you want to be a speaker, please email us at webinar@letustalkit.com. And yes, everyone who has joined us today on Zoom, Facebook, YouTube, thank you so much for joining in. And what I get from today's discussion is that if we are going to create real impact, it has to be done with the same passion, same focus, level of intensity as your own business. We have to take it seriously. And yes, have fun doing it along, but yes, we have to give some importance, right, youth?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Yes. So yes, we have to put in, and you have placed it so well. Thank you, Eshita. I know it's late in the UK, but you have been always, so cooperative with we have our prep sessions every Tuesdays and Wednesdays from 4 to 5 p.m. EST. She was there. She was even there on Thursday. So thank you. Special thanks to you. It's late there. And thank you, Siri, Pranav, Anvita, Prabhat, and of course Medha to bring up this topic. I would ask all of you to stay back after the session ends so that we have a couple of things to discuss. We can do that. So everyone else, thank you so much for joining in. We wish you a very, very happy and safe weekend. Thank you so much.
Gilbert.